A very good evening to everyone present here. Mozilla Campus Club of Father CRC is happy to be back with an exciting webinar on roadmap to become a cybersecurity specialist. We are really proud to have with us our guest speaker for today's event, Mr. Rohit Date, who is also an alumni of our college. Mr. Rohit is someone who is self-motivated and learning the development of novel combination of techniques for defending companies and its critical infrastructure globally from cyber threats, be it banking and financial sectors, government and public sectors, information and communication technology, healthcare, smart cities, or cryptocurrency. Mr. Rohit has worked on several projects based on all these sectors and has also traveled across India for on-site projects. He stands tall as a domain expert and has articulate knowledge regarding everything you need to know about information security and penetration testing methodologies for network, mobile, and web applications. We are honored to have him as our speaker for today and hoping everyone has a great and informative session. Now, I'd like to call Mr. Rohit to continue with the session ahead.
Yeah, I thank you, Amisha, for the introduction. So I just like to share my screen. Just a minute. Okay, is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so first off, thanks for the introduction again. And like Amisha said, I'm working in the field of cybersecurity since the past more than past 2 years. And my specialty would be your risk assessment or in a layman's term, ethical hacking. So what I do is I would hack into companies, different organizations, their websites, mobile applications, their networks, all of that, and then point out to them how a real world hacker could harm any of their systems. Along with working at video consulting at this particular job profile, at the same time, I also do train uh, professionals, people in the government sector, such as a few police personnel that I have trained and other government agencies in cybersecurity, ethical hacking, and at the same time, cyber forensic investigations. So, today we will be discussing the roadmap to become a cybersecurity specialist, like the title of the workshop said. And what I will be doing during this whole workshop is I will be asking a lot of questions. So, please feel free to unmute yourselves and speak up, and nothing will be a wrong answer or a right answer. You can answer whatever you feel right in that particular moment. So this is the outline of today's webinar. So obviously now, since we are talking about cybersecurity, we're having a whole workshop on cybersecurity. We'll have a little introduction to what is cybersecurity, like from my perspective and from your perspective as students, what exactly cybersecurity means to you. Then after that, we will discuss the different domains of cybersecurity. Now, if we are talking about becoming a cybersecurity specialist, getting into the field of cybersecurity as a profession, what different fields of cybersecurity could you start working in, like get into the industry working in a particular field of cybersecurity? Because if you say cybersecurity is one profession, that would be kind of underplaying the role of cybersecurity in the current scenario. Currently, there are around 5 to 6 different, completely different domains in the field of cybersecurity itself. So we will be discussing those. Then after that, now uh, we like when we started with cybersecurity, we didn't have really any direction like how we would get into cybersecurity. I believe now in colleges there is a little more, there is a subject of cybersecurity, and you do have a little more of about the basics of cybersecurity being taught to you. So what we will be doing is we will be discussing how you can get started with cybersecurity, like what skills you require, what are the prerequisites for starting your career in cybersecurity, who do you approach, what what are the certifications and credentials are really needed to land that first job or put your first foot into the door into cybersecurity. And finally, we will be talking about how we can prepare for interviews to get a job into this whole cybersecurity domain. Because ideally, what I think most of us have faced is the first interview, the first job. Landing that first job is really the difficult part, because we do have knowledge, we have our educational degree to back us up, we have certifications, but at the same time, in the industry, especially in the cybersecurity industry, no one is really looking at those credentials as much as they are looking at how well prepared you are and how skilled you are to start working immediately. Because as we will go forward and have a look, there is a lot of jobs in cybersecurity, and there are a very few people working in this field. So once you get into a job, no one really has the time to sit and train you, and then after training you for 6 months, you start working on your own. So what they are looking for is someone who can just join, maybe get 1 month to get acquainted with the whole process and start working. So we will be discussing that as well. So first, let's start off with the introduction to cybersecurity. So what is cybersecurity? Can anyone answer this? Anyone? No wrong or right answers here. Okay, I think no one wants to unmute their mic. Okay, so let's move on. So cybersecurity, at least as per the definition, is the protection of any kind of digital assets. Now, digital assets, I think no one would know better than our generation what digital assets are. It could constitute of websites, your mobile devices, laptops, even your routers, printers, cameras in schools, colleges, offices, any of these electronic assets. Uh, the protection of these assets is what is called as cybersecurity. And it's not just the protection of all of these assets. So we could say you're protecting a device, and to protect a device, you build a complete brick wall around it. That really wouldn't be security as much as just stopping any access to that complete thing. So cybersecurity at the same time, it constitutes of confidentiality, where you are protecting the data, you are maintaining the state of that data, so integrity and the availability of that information. So we can't really be hiding that information even from the people who need it. So it's just a proper organization and protection of that information or that data or whatever asset it is. It's just the proper protection and organization of that information. So the need for cybersecurity. Now, if we go back, say 20 years ago, I think most of us were barely infants back then. 20 years ago, computers were fairly new in India. Like I remember we had the huge CRT screens, your Intel Pentium 1, Pentium 2s running hardly anything, maybe sending out mails, dial up connections, and printing out black and white documents. If you look 10 years ahead of that, say 2010, we had the iPhone which was coming out. Computers were quite advanced. We had our laptops and we had a lot of data. We had Facebook coming out. We had other social media, Orkut, we had Gmail. We had a lot of data which was slowly migrating online. So there was a lot of personal information which was going online, personal and private information. There were online transactions, your NEFT, and all these online transactions which had already been started 10 years ago. And if you look at today, especially since the last year, since the coronavirus and since this lockdown, practically almost 80% of our lives have moved online. From everywhere, from everything, purchasing groceries online, taking your doctor's consultations online, making payments online, having these workshops and meetings online. Everything has moved on to the internet. So with all of this information moving to the internet, it's become really important to protect all of this data, because like in the real world, you have banks which have your money, you have your wallets which have money, you are protecting that money. But at the same time, there are bad actors, there are robbers who will try to steal that valuable, those valuable assets. Similarly, as the use of the internet is increasing, there are people, or hackers as we call them, who the number of are increasing, and these people are out to steal your personal information. And in today's world, especially in 2020, 2021, data is one of the most valuable resources. You can ask anyone working in a big industry on some high level, they'll tell you that your the monetary assets of a company are valuable, but at the same time, the personal data that they have of people, their credit card numbers, their addresses, their phone numbers, people's images, all of these things are equally valuable in today's world. So, because of this, it's become really important to protect this data, and that's why the need of cybersecurity has increased exponentially over the past 10 years. So, here I've just given out a few important statistics from 2020 for cybersecurity. So, data breaches, what are data breaches? Data breaches are something where an organization in some way is compromised, and hackers try and steal data, personal data of customers or even of the company, and they'll either threaten the company to pay up some amount, or they'll just sell it online on the dark web for anything as cheap as 1,000 to 10,000 rupees, which is peanuts for someone who really needs that uh, information. So if you see over here, data breaches alone exposed around 4.1 billion records in the first half of 2020. Now, considering the population of the world is somewhere close to a 7 billion people, 4.1 billion is more than half the population of the world. Then 71% of these breaches were financially motivated, and 25 were motivated by espionage. What do we mean by financially motivated? Like I said, the hackers were trying to get into that organization, steal that information, sell it, or either threaten the company to pay up or sell that information online. And the other 25% now were motivated by espionage. Now, by espionage, how could we define espionage? Let's say for people, I think most of you are living in Mumbai, since our college is in Mumbai, or even if you aren't, you might have heard around 20 days ago, there was a power outage in Mumbai. And I think many people did get this news that it was by a group of Chinese hackers who had hacked the power grid, and that's how this thing. So, there are many times where interstate actors or even one corporate will hire another corporate just to hack into another organization and cause some kind of damage. So again, 52% breaches featured hacking, 28% involved malware. Now, what is malware? Malware is nothing but some piece of software which is written to cause harm to an organization or a person on an individual level. And 30 to 33% of these were phishing or social engineering. I think many of you might have faced these now over the past 3 years as well. So where you might get a call saying uh, your credit card is about to expire, your debit card is about to expire, you've not completed your KYC for your Paytm, and we are going to you will have to pay a fine. So if you don't want to pay the fine, we can help you with the process. And where they'll ask you for your credit or debit card number, the CVV, and the expiry date. And it's not like, okay, we as students might say, okay, who is that stupid to give out this information? But many a times these actors are really convincing, and they do convince you to give out all this information. So 30 to 33% of these attacks happen due to these phishing attacks. Now, if you look over here, hackers attack every 39 seconds. So that's around 2000 times in a day. So every 40 seconds, someone is getting, or at least is being attempted to get hacked. So if you look over here, in 2016, Uber lost 57 million drivers records, and they were forced to pay around $100,000 in fines or in compensation to the customers. And now, okay, we'll say this happens to bigger organizations, and many a times people do have this attitude, especially in India. It happened to Uber. Uber is a big organization. It might not happen to us. So just to give you perspective of how many people are being hacked, how many records are available, here you can have a look over here. So here there are web hosting services, Adobe, then there are other so many databases which are readily available, download for maybe free or even 1,000 2,000 rupees at the most. So that is how much the threat in cybersecurity has increased over the past few years. Now, these were the negative parts of this whole threat increasing in cybersecurity. But over here, we can see that because of all these threats increasing, the spending on cybersecurity is going to reach about 133.7 billion in 2022. So companies are investing into cybersecurity. They are putting aside a really big budget of their yearly budget into cybersecurity. So what does that mean for us? For us as an individual, it means that there are going to be many openings and many job opportunities in this field. So, like you can see over here, New York Times had reported that there were around 3.5 million unfulfilled cybersecurity jobs globally in 2021. And we living in India, India, you could say, is the IT hub of the world. Like most of the IT jobs in the world, or most of the people working in IT are Indians. Like a vast majority are Indians. So that does mean that there will be a lot of jobs available in this particular field, especially in India itself. Now, again, if you see here, there are many people who apply for this job, but very few people are qualified enough to work for this job. Like I explained in the start of this webinar, maybe you'll apply for the job, but no one really has that time to sit down, teach you for 3 months. Then after that, they'll give you 3 months more of on floor shadowing someone, and then you start working on your own. No one really has the time in this field for that. Maybe they might give you an internship for 3 months, but that's about it. After that, you're expected to start working. So that's the whole point of this workshop today. Is I'm going to try and explain to you how you could specialize in this field so that you are one of those candidates who is actually qualified to be working in this field. You don't have to take an internship, do reporting work, or maybe making reports, making pitch decks, or any of that work. You can directly start working in this field. And this was just the basic salary range for freshers in this field. That was, I think it's not a really recent figure. It's somewhere from 2019 to towards the end of 2020. Obviously, this figure has gone a bit upwards over the past 1 year. I don't think. Okay. So now getting to the different domains of cybersecurity. Uh, has any one of you actually researched like anything about cybersecurity? Anyone looking to get into cybersecurity or read of any of these terms? I believe a few engineering colleges do have a subject of cybersecurity. I'm not really sure if our college does, but uh, has anyone read anything regarding this, or does anyone know anything regarding cybersecurity jobs or different domains? No. Okay. Awfully fine. Okay, so maybe we can move forward with the different domains. So let's start first with the frameworks and standards. Now, like most of the technical fields, even me personally being an electronic engineer from Father Arnell's itself, each of these fields has a certain governing body which sets standards for how things are supposed to be, the quality and the control of various domains. So the first domain of cybersecurity would be the frameworks and the standards, like the different standards which are to be followed by organizations when they are planning their entire cybersecurity structure. So the first one would be the frameworks and standards. So in the frameworks and standards part, there are a few really well-known standards known as, if you go for web security, it would be the OWASP standard, Open Web Application Security Project, or there is the ISO standard, ISO 27001, and all of these different standards which are set up so that you can help set up the complete cybersecurity infrastructure of an organization. It defines how the policies, the different procedures, the frameworks that are to be set up. Now, these standards are well defined, but at the same time, they don't really have to be conforming to just exactly how they are set. Now, if you are running a college, you're not going to use the same standard that someone in a bank is being used or will be using. You will need someone to tailor these standards to your specific needs. So that's where this framework and standard as a profession, setting up these frameworks and standards comes in as a profession. So there are people who are really well versed and have a bit of experience in cybersecurity, and they what they do is they will tell you, okay, do you want to base your organizational cybersecurity structure on this standard? So they will take up that standard, and what they will do is they will tailor it around your specific needs. So that could be one of the jobs. Like if you are good at, say, documenting things, taking feedback from customers about their requirements, and then sitting and researching how you could improve the structure of their organization, then this would be one of the jobs that you could get into, setting up these frameworks and these standards. The next one would be security architecture. Now, I know for certain the people doing computer science or electronics engineering. I'm not quite sure about IT. You have these the subject known as CCN, your computer computer networks, CCNA, Certified Computer Network Architects, or CCNA. Yes, computer networks and computer network architecture. So in that, what we usually learn is how to set up the architecture of a computer network. Maybe you'll have a server somewhere in between. You'll have maybe 5 devices, and you'll learn about your star topologies, your tree topologies, and all of these different topologies. So what used to ideally happen when computer networks came into the picture was no one really thought about the security perspective of this field. What they were looking was for the information to be easily available to the end user. So what happened was maybe a few 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line, they did realize that security is also an important aspect that they have to take into consideration. And that's where that security architecture as a profession came into existence. Now, what a security architect does is he'll design the computer network along with obviously your network architect. He will sit with a network architect and they design the complete architecture to make it a more secure network for anyone. Now, this obviously again has a lot of research, planning, taking your feedback from your customers, means your client, that is, how exactly they want their network. And based on that, they design the complete architecture of the network. And at the same time, after developing the architecture of this network, they also design policies and procedures to be followed in that network. Like you wouldn't want your IT department to have access to records of your of your accounting department, because your IT department really doesn't need to know the accounts of each and every employee in the organization. At the same time, you wouldn't want your marketing team to have access to your IT team's resources, because there is a very rare case where the marketing department would require some data from the IT department, in which case they could ask them rather than having unlimited access to their resources. So the security architect also decides all these procedures and policies, who's supposed to have access to what in an organization. So for this, again, if you are good at planning your complete networks, you're implementing your network architecture, you are interested in cybersecurity, and you obviously are interested in sitting and researching about how to these new improvements in cybersecurity, the improved hardware, firewalls, your other endpoint security solutions, and you are interested in implementing computer architectures, you can go forward with the security architecture profession. The next one would be a sorry, risk assessment as a profession. So, like I said, I work in this particular field of cybersecurity. So, what exactly a risk assessment team does is, first of all, many organizations don't have their in-house risk assessment team. So, they will have a risk assessment team hired by a consulting firm, like the firm I'm working in. And in this particular consulting firm will provide a small risk assessment team to a client. Like for example, I've worked on clients such as your NPCI or Axis Bank or a few of these government organizations. So what happens is they will hire us for a particular time. They will tell us, okay, so what you are supposed to do now is act like actual real world hackers, where they will define a scope. Okay, so if I'm going for say google.com, so they'll tell us anything with google.com related to it is in scope. So you what we do is we will go finding out information about that particular domain, get as much information as we can without triggering any alerts on their end where they know someone is trying to hack into their system, and we will try to find out information and get into their systems. So in short, we will be mimicking your real world threats, and we will be getting into these systems using whatever methods we can, even many a times writing our own tools and our own exploits as well. And after doing all of this, what we do is we provide a very detailed report to our clients, and we tell them, okay, this is what is lacking in your security infrastructure, and this is how you could improve the security infrastructure of your organization. The next part would be governance. So IT security governance is people who go and run audits. Now, I don't know how many of you would be familiar with the different kinds of audits that happen in industries such as your IT audits, your other ISO audits, all of these audits. So what happens is the governance part includes people who will be into this auditing field. So what they do is once someone has implemented the complete cybersecurity uh, in their organization, someone from the frameworks and standard, the security architect, once they and the risk assessment field, once all of these fields have finished their work, they have implemented the cybersecurity complete cybersecurity structure of an organization. This governance field goes into an organization, and they will check for the exact documentation, what all policies have been set, if anything is missing in these policies. If an organization has said, okay, they have set these policies, they will check if those policies are implemented well, if there are any gaps in any of these policies, and all of these things. So it's more of a check after everything has been implemented. They do more of a evaluation of the cybersecurity infrastructure, and then they will tell you if anything is missing in your infrastructure, and if you are going for any kind of compliance, like say your RBI compliance or any of these compliance audits, then they will tell you, okay, you will pass this particular audit or you might not pass that particular audit. Another really interesting field in cybersecurity would be threat intelligence. Now, what threat intelligence does is there are many actors who continuously keep attacking different organizations, such as your government organizations, or they will attack banks, insurance companies, even many large campuses. So, just let me give you an example. So this is one of those continuous threats, or that group which continuously keeps hacking different government organizations. They've just been termed APT1, which is a advanced persistent threat, and one is their assigned number. So they are a Chinese hacker group which keeps hacking countries in Europe, in the United States, and what they will do is they will keep trying different methods. Like obviously now you say the United States, they have organizations such as NASA or the Department of Defense, and you might think, okay, these people are investing billions into their cybersecurity, obviously they might be secure, but no one really is 100% secure, and these actors keep working on some small changes in the organization which could help them get into any of these organization or government agencies. So Threat intelligence plays an important role in this part where they will keep learning what these threat actors have been doing lately, what methods they have been using. Have they been using some different malware? Have they been using some methods to cover up their tracks or any of this? The different domains they have been using to attack any of these organizations, and they keep monitoring these threat actors. And after monitoring these threat actors, what they do is they'll prepare their checklist, their databases, and they'll use all of this data combined with AI and ML software, machine learning softwares. They will try and implement these softwares in an organization. So, in case, say, a threat actor has been using a domain xyz.com. So what these threat intelligence softwares do is if they see a mail or if something coming in from xyz.com, they will immediately block it. So they know, okay, this was used 10 days ago by a threat actor. This domain was used by a threat actor 10 days ago. So anything coming from this is supposed to be blocked and not enter our organization. And again, this is a really interesting field because you have to really keep up with the upcoming threats in our current world, and at the same time you are developing tools to protect people as soon as these threats come up. And it's for some this would be a more specific job for someone who is really interested in programming, especially artificial intelligence and machine learning as such. And another one would be the security operations center. So I think many of us might have seen this in a lot of Hollywood movies where someone is being hacked and there is someone sitting in a control room with around 15-20 screens in front of them, and they are like, okay, this has been hacked, they are getting in through this way, and maybe we could block this. So that's sometimes a picture of a security operations center. So what happens is in a security operations center there will be multiple uh, sorry multiple people sitting in a security operations center 24/7. A security operations center never actually goes down, never really has off. So there will be people on rotational shifts working in this security operations center, continuously monitoring the different logs in a organization. Now, if you talk about logs, we all know that even our devices, our Windows devices as well, prepare logs of all the activity we've done, what time we've logged in, if we've opened our browser, then how long we've surfed the internet, if we've updated any softwares, all of these things. At the same time, in organizations, there are firewalls, there are antivirus solutions, other DLP solutions. All of these things keep a continuous log of what all activities are happening in an organization. And the Security Operations Center monitors all of these logs. And if they find an indication of they are going to be hacked, they are being attempted to hack from somewhere, or there is some unusual activity, it's their job to really stop these attacks. So you can say they are the first people to respond in case of a cybersecurity attack in a particular organization. Like they are continuously keeping a track, and they will. It's their duty to know when a cybersecurity threat is being, like a cybersecurity attack is taking place in their organization. And another really important part. Okay, now reading the title user education, we might think, okay, this is just teaching someone something. But if you ask anyone working in the field of cybersecurity, which is the weakest link in the cybersecurity infrastructure of an organization, or at least if you ask someone from the threat intelligence or the risk assessment part, which is the weakest link in in the cybersecurity structure of an organization, we'll always tell you it's the human aspect, because you can really secure your network. Like you can use the best of firewalls, best of antivirus, use the most secure coding practices, really shut down your complete network, like put it between four walls where nothing goes in, nothing comes out. But obviously there will be some kind of human interaction. And if you can't get into a computer network, manipulating humans is way more easier than any of this. Like most of the attacks, like we see in the first slide, around 30 to 33% of the cybersecurity attacks happen through phishing. So around 30% of the attacks were because some human did get fooled, and because they did get fooled, their complete organization suffered because of that one employee's mistake. And even we as hackers usually do end up doing this. Like even me on a personal level, I am working on a current project now for a really big uh, insurance firm where we have been instructed to just only two people in the organization know what we are doing. In that organization know what we are doing, and they've given us a list of their domains and they've told us use whatever means necessary and get into our organization. So obviously we've been trying to hack their websites, we've been trying to get a hold of any other devices, but we have left the most important and main part of that project, which is trying to fool the employees of that organization. We have collected a database of all the employees of that organization, and the main part of our project would be targeting those employees. And again, targeting, now we would say people usually know that this is not from the organization, but uh, it's our job to be as convincing as we can to try and fool people. So that is where this user education part really comes into play. Now, user education doesn't necessarily mean just telling people, okay, oh, cybersecurity, there is something known as cybersecurity, there are hackers and they will hack into your system. No. So this user awareness part also includes actually performing these exercises of, say, sending out phishing emails or walking into an organization, checking if people are locking their devices. If they are locking their devices, have they written their passwords anywhere on the screen, like written it on a paper, stuck it on their screen, or if they've written it down anywhere on their desks. If things such as server rooms are left open in any of these organizations, like all of these things also do come into user education. So this as well is a really interesting field in this. So getting started with cybersecurity. Again, uh, has anyone really thought about getting into cybersecurity or any kind of interest in cybersecurity from anyone? Okay, I think I'm going to get a response. So, okay, moving forward. The first step is obviously choosing a career path. Now, in the past 10 to 15 minutes, I kind of give you a brief idea of what all career paths there are in cybersecurity. Now, the first part obviously would be choosing a career path based on your unique strengths. Like I said, if you're going into threat intelligence, you need to be good in programming, AI, machine learning. If you are going into standards and frameworks, you should be someone who can really sit down and go through a lot of documentation and then based on that documentation tailor make a program for your clients and all of these things. So based on these different strengths, first would be choosing your unique background for that, choosing your career path based on that, on your unique background. Now the second one would be listing out your preferences and skills to help you pinpoint which of those positions. Now say you've decided that you want to go in maybe threat intelligence or security operations, one of those two fields. After you've narrowed down to those two fields, what you can do is maybe go to any useful resources. Like uh, a really important part about cybersecurity is you get a lot of information online. Like many of the cybersecurity professionals are self-taught. Like no one really taught any of us in school or anything. Most of the data is open source and freely available. Many of us do write free blogs or maybe post books for free, free papers, many of these things. So you could visit any of these blogs as such and read out about the different professions, like what do people do in that particular profession, just what all skills are required in that profession, what are the salary ranges sorry based on those different professions. Like if you are working in Mumbai, Bangalore, if you're planning to move out of India, what are the salary ranges, what are the expectations of your employers. All of these things are readily available online. The next would be obviously getting in touch with people who are in the industry. Now, like I said, cybersecurity is still a relatively new field in India, so you will get a lot of knowledge maybe based on the courses you have in college or the courses you've done apart from your college life. But at the same time, to get into an industry, it's always better to talk to someone who already is in that industry. So someone who is working in, say, if you are planning to go as a security architect, so someone who is already a security architect who is working in an industry right now and knows what the current industry requirements are. So the best thing would be to talk to someone who's 5 years in that field, maybe 2 years in that field, 5 years in that field, and 10 years in that field. Always talk to three different people with different experience. So accordingly, they can tell you what all you need to learn before really getting into that. Then the one of the most important parts in the cybersecurity field would be actually thinking like a cyber criminal. Now, like being able to understand how exactly a criminal would try to get into something. If, for example, we look at, say, okay, let's just look at this particular cake shop. So this is a cake shop in Mumbai. Many people might have seen this. And now looking at this, what exactly could a criminal do? Uh, Personally, me and a friend, when we did start getting into the cybersecurity field, we thought, okay, we're getting a half kg cake for 410, a 5 kg cake for 4,000. Being a cyber criminal, someone could maybe try and order the 5 kg cake for 400 rupees. And what we did do was using a few very basic methods. We tampered with this price and were able to order this cake for 400 rupees. Obviously, we didn't place the order, we just went right up to the payments page and then canceled the order. And maybe if time permits after this session, I could actually do that and show to you. So that is what you really require in this field of cybersecurity, is to actually think like a cyber criminal, like what could really happen to maybe a website, maybe a company's network, maybe a mobile application. What could really happen? Like what could a hacker actually do to any of these things? So actually thinking like that actual hacker or cyber criminal. Now here there are a few other skills which aren't really necessary as such, but if you have any of these skills, they could help you boost your career. Like learning a programming language. Now, many people from here might be from the computer engineering or from the IT field and at least have a hold on one programming language. Even people from the electronics or production or mechanical field will have a little bit of a hold on a programming language, but just learning one programming language a little well, like understanding the exact flow of how programming works, would be a boost in your cybersecurity career. The next one would be your security and networking foundations. Now, security foundations, obviously, you could do a basic course of what cybersecurity is, and that would pretty much suffice for you to move ahead and specialize in whatever field you want. And networking foundations, I think now, since most of us here would be engineers, we would have a bit of basic networking courses in our syllabus as well. Then the next would be logging and monitoring procedures. It's not really necessary as such, but based on the field that you decide to work, if you work into a security operations center or in a risk assessment center, this would be an added benefit. Then the defense tactics. Again, if you are working in risk assessment or if you are working in security architecture, then these tactics would come into use. And cryptography, web application techniques. Again, based off what field you do decide to get into, many of these skills do help you boost your career till a certain point. Now, the next part would be certifications. Now, this field, at least the cybersecurity field, and from my understanding, and even my mentors who have been working for say 15 years, 20 years in this field, more than going for a master's. Okay, a master's is good for a cybersecurity to get into a cybersecurity job, but again, at the same time, what happens is in a master's certifications, you will be learning about all the different aspects of cybersecurity rather than specializing in one. And if you go practically looking for a job, there isn't any job apart from if you are the CISO of a company or on that really high post in a company, there isn't really a job which requires you to know all of the know all the different aspects of cybersecurity. Rather, it just requires you to specialize in maybe one or at the most two different aspects of cybersecurity. So your okay, this chart does seem a bit confusing, but let's just go through it. So first, for the entry level courses, these entry level and novice courses, you could say both are quite similar, and could be considered entry level courses. So at least based in India, one course that many people normally do would be the CEH course, irrespective of which cybersecurity field you're working in. Many people do the CEH course. It's called a Certified Ethical Hacker. Now, me personally, when I started my cybersecurity career, I did not do the CEH. I did a course similar to CEH, which had practically the same portion, just certified by another body, less influential, but certified by another body and had the same this thing and helped me just get into cybersecurity. So if you are keen on getting into cybersecurity, don't know which field in cybersecurity you want to specialize into, maybe you could look into one of these courses, go through the portion. A lot of their portion is available freely online as well. Go through that portion and then maybe if you still have that interest, do one of these courses. Holding one of these certifications isn't really something that will for sure help you land a job, but it adds on to your resume. Now, after you have done one of these courses, here it says programming or scripting language. Not really that much of a necessity, again, I would say. You don't really need your programming languages up until you come somewhere over here. So, for that, now you could say programming languages, just understanding how a program is written, the flow of a program would be more than enough. After this, maybe you could do one of these courses if you are sure, like, okay, I want to be a security analyst or a security architecture, then I could do the CSPM, or maybe I could do a VCMIA. Or if I want to get into security analysis, I could do the CAP course or the CRISC course. All of these courses, if you want to get into, say, offensive operations or your risk assessment, like I said, maybe you could do EJPT, CPT, or ECSA. Now, me personally, being from this table, I had done a course similar to CEH and a course similar to this LPT. So it's not necessary that you have to move along this complete part doing each and every course. Once you're confident enough, you can skip a few of these courses and directly jump to something which is really relevant to your learning. So I did a course similar to your LPT, again by a local organization, not that much value, but the learning was the same. So after completing this course, I started working at a startup in Pune, and at the same time I continued preparing for more courses, because in this particular field, if you ever ask anyone, there isn't any time where you can stop learning. Like I have managers in my organization who have 5 to 7 years of experience. They still do certifications, at least one certification every year. There is my director who has around 15 years of experience and has really worked a lot in this field, from everywhere, training people in banks to even training the Indian Army as such. And even he keeps on pursuing some certification, learning some new skill in this field. So to keep up with that learning, me personally, I completed this course over here, OSCP. And after this, if anyone does decide to get into this, get into cybersecurity, if you reach one of these levels, doing one of these courses, you don't really have to go searching for a job as such. People come up front. You just post it on your LinkedIn maybe, and people up front come and offer you jobs. Like, okay, you have this certification, we will give you this package, we will get you in at this position, and you have a bargaining chip in your hand. And obviously, after that, you can keep going upwards. It doesn't actually even stop over here. There are courses way beyond this. Because me personally, I would be somewhere over here, and there are courses way above this. So you can continuously keep learning in this field, keep updating yourself in this field, and that's how you could progress and even get your first job and even progress really well in this in the field of cybersecurity. Now, the next one would be okay. preparing for an interview, like say you've done some course, you've prepared for cybersecurity, you have been learning for maybe 3 months, 6 months, you are going in for that first interview. Now, me personally, I did not really know what to prepare for the first interview rather than having a link similar to this where I had interview tips. But if you are going for an interview, the first thing is obviously you do need to know the basic cybersecurity questions such as what is CIA, what is IA, and what is AAA. This is something now since you're a fresher and the interviewer just wants to know at least if you've done your basic homework, this is what they'll ask you. Next, obviously prepare for the basics in whatever field you are working for. For example, if you are in incident management, you can learn about what privacy incidents are, what are information security incidents, the types of alerts. And if you are applying for digital forensics, questions like what is net flow, sampling rate, digital imaging. If you are working in risk assessment, like what are the different kinds of hackers, all of these basic, really basic questions like definitions, one line definitions is something that you should be preparing for. Another thing would be, and to prepare for these resources, again, there is this link over here which I have posted. I could share these links with you all after the interview. So, what is in this particular GitHub repository, there are questions which can be asked for freshers from any field in cybersecurity. So, maybe this one link should be sufficient just to prepare you for the basic questions. Now, after you have done this, learn as much as possible about the current organization, like that you are trying for. For example, if you're trying for HDFC Bank, so it is a bank. Now, what all, based on a cybersecurity perspective, what all could they be trying to protect? They could be trying to, they have their own applications, they have their offices, they have data centers somewhere in the country. So they will be trying to protect their applications which contain people's information such as credit cards, their home addresses, PAN numbers, Aadhaar cards. They will be trying to protect that. Then they will be trying to protect the their data centers, the physical data centers which are there, for hacker from getting into these data centers and maybe just bringing down the data centers, which could cause a lot of damage, or even stealing any of that data. Or for example, if you are going into maybe a consulting firm like say Deloitte, so what do these consulting firms do? Like if you are applying for a security architecture position at Deloitte, obviously they wouldn't be hiring you to construct the security architecture of their own organization. They are a consulting firm and they've already done that a lot. But they, since you're working as a consulting, they will be deploying you to the to different clients. So maybe you can try and read up about what type of clients they have and what the requirements of these specific clients would be. Now, after you have read out about the company, another important question, like I said, in cybersecurity, it's a field where you continuously need to keep up with the upcoming trends and threats in this field, and at the same time, you continuously need to keep upgrading your knowledge. So these two questions are something which not just for an entry level job, but up until like maybe 5, 10 years down your career, someone will keep asking you like, how do you keep yourself updated? What like how what are your plans for 5 years down the line? If you are working in say XYZ field, how do you plan to move up in this field? Like okay, now you might be say the 10th best in a company. How do you plan to move up in this field and become one of the best people in a company in this field? How do you plan on updating your knowledge? So maybe you can like say okay, to keep up with the trends, you read medium articles, you go through Google posts on different, say, NDTV or any of these news outlets. And to continuously update your knowledge, you keep doing courses on, say, Coursera, not really a relevant source right here, but whichever field you are doing, say, this certification, or you are trying to learn from this particular academy, gain this particular skill. So that would be preparing for an interview. And another important part in cybersecurity, if you ask me, especially is what I notice while taking interviews of people is people will have a lot of theoretical knowledge. Okay, having that theoretical knowledge is well and good. It shows that you prepared and you are somewhat dedicated to this field. but at the same time have some kind of practical knowledge. Now, in cybersecurity, there are a lot of open open source there's a lot of open source material which is readily available in this field. Like, you don't really have to pay for anything. You get books, you get labs, you get everything which is freely available. And cybersecurity is such a field where everyone likes to share knowledge. So it's not like anyone will charge you for anything. So what you can do is maybe download these labs, read a few of these books, set up your own labs, or even ask someone who is experienced in this field to, if you can shadow them, like while you are learning, so that you can gain a little more practical knowledge in this particular field. So by that, what happens is with that, when you are going for an interview, rather than just giving out theoretical answers, you can prove to the interviewer that okay, you have tried to work in this field, you have watched someone work in this field, and based on that, people usually give you give you a more open opportunity of getting into one of these entry level jobs. So I think that would be the most important part about landing that first job in cybersecurity as such. So I think that would be all from my end. Like, if you have any queries or if you have any doubts, anyone of you looking to get into cybersecurity, don't have anyone who could guide you in any of these fields, please feel free to reach out to me anytime. Like, even if I am not really into the particular field you are looking into, I don't know what you have to do to, I'm pretty sure I will have someone who is working in that field and can guide you. So that would be all from my.
Thank you, sir. It was a great session. The participants can fill their feedback form that from the link that has been sent on the chat box, and you all can ask any questions if you all have. So there are questions coming in the chat box.
Yes, I just read that. So, Tiju, I don't really know if there are any companies coming in right now for cybersecurity. At least when I passed out around 3 years ago, there weren't any companies coming specifically looking for cybersecurity roles. But I think this is something you would have to take up with the placement cell of our college. I'm not quite sure if we do have any companies right now. And if not, at least I'm a part of the alumni community where we are planning to have a platform, and we have a Alma Connect. So at least there are postings coming in for cybersecurity jobs, even for freshers over there. So even if the companies aren't coming in directly, I'm pretty sure you can find postings on Alma Connect. So my first interview experience, actually the first interview experience I had, I initially got two interviews lined up. The first was a startup where I worked in my first job, and the other interview at my start was again the organization where I'm working in right now. So I had given interviews at both of these places, and the startup one was more of a, not just a security role. It was more of a role where I had to perform cybersecurity duties. At the same time, I didn't really have any senior working in this field, because ethical hacking as a field in India was isn't really that new, but is still a very limited field. Like, not many people working in this field around 2 years ago. So uh, the one in the startups, like if you are going for a startup, they will expect you to take on more duties of communicating with the client, preparing all the documentation for the client. Like, you should know what to ask the client if you want to go ahead with a project. And if you go into a bigger consulting firm like BDO, where I am working right now, uh, so in this field, when I initially gave my interview, they grill you more on the technical aspect. Like, they have managers and people on the higher management working at working in this field for years, so you don't really have to handle any of that management part. But on a technical aspect, they expect you to be really thorough. Like, at least the bigger consulting firms will never waste time on someone who doesn't know anything technically and who can't do projects. At the most, they will offer you an internship, but beyond that, they just want someone who can start off day one, take 10 days for their handover, and then start working on projects. So that's the difference between maybe a startup and a corporate. And personally speaking, like from my experience, I always had a wish of a startup. That's the whole reason I have gone with a startup. And after that, I switched to a consulting firm. But if you ask me or anyone in this field, like if you really want to learn a lot in cybersecurity in the initial years, always get into a consulting firm. So, because what will happen if you get into a product based firm? Like say Colgate, for example, is a product-based firm. They have a cybersecurity program and they pay really good salaries. But you will be working only for that one product, so your learning will be limited. And if you at the same time go to a consulting firm, say Deloitte, EY, or even my firm, there you will be working on 10 different clients, so you get a lot of learning. Okay, so moving, I hope that answers your question, Nabidin. So moving on to Tejan. Do lawyers work at IT companies as cyber lawyers? Yes, they do. Cyber law is also a really up and coming field because we have many lawyers. I think anyone who's walked outside Bandra Court knows this. There are far too many lawyers in Mumbai. But cyber lawyers, we don't have really too many cyber lawyers. And the thing with cyber lawyers, what happens is we obviously don't have cyber lawyers, and at the same time, even police personnel don't really know a lot about cyber security. So because of that, if you do plan to do your cyber law, it is a really good added benefit because you are you have prepared means you are working as a lawyer even in an IT company, and you are really proficient in one particular firm, cyber law, where there aren't many people. So you are a subject matter expert in that particular field. And since you do like you are specialized in cyber law, it's a little more easier compared to the other lawyers in that in those particular cases. Like most of the cases which come in nowadays are cyber law cases. So you are the expert in that this thing, and it's really easy to land a job and get a really good salary. Any any tips for SEFE students interested in cybersecurity? SEFE students actually, I think you all would be one of the luckiest people. That's because cybersecurity is catching up as a profession right now. So a lot of open source resources, many people working in this field, many of our alumni who are interested or working in cybersecurity field. So get in touch with people, try to research as much as you can. Because right now, if you're in FE, you have around 3 more years. If you're in SC, you have 2 more years to prepare for your cybersecurity careers. And you can get a lot of internships, paid internships, where you get paid really well. You can do a lot of courses, and maybe till the time you're out of college you don't really have to start off as an analyst role or something like that. Maybe you've gathered enough experience where people will directly start picking you up as a consultant or a senior consultant role. So FE students, I think, get in touch with people and maybe just do as many certifications courses, not as many but as many relevant certifications and courses as you can. Okay, Tejal, Makwana. So what skills they have? I think Tejal, you are talking about okay, cyber lawyers, right? So Tejal, cyber lawyers, they are lawyers. Means obviously they have done their law, and at the same time they also do these diploma courses or certification courses or IT. The IT Act of India, the IT Act of 2000. Can't remember the exact year right now, not a cyber lawyer myself. But yeah, learning the IT Act really well. So can maybe just Google IT Act of 2000. Let me share my screen. So yeah, there are many courses. Actually, even one of the institutes that I planned courses for, like I plan the more technical courses, but your DY Patil University, I plan diploma courses in most of the technical parts, but at the same time, they also have courses in cyber law. So even just doing courses in this Information Technology Act is more than enough to work as a cyber lawyer. And maybe you can get in touch with many of these organizations. So skills for cyber laws, consultation for law agency. Tejal, I didn't really get your next question. The this one. Maybe you could just elaborate that question a little more. Sandeep, what do I need to know for cybersecurity interviews? Okay, so just a minute. Let's. So, Sandeep, I think this GitHub repository is more than enough now based on what cybersecurity job role you are going for. Maybe you can narrow down to that particular field. If it's uh, say networking. If you're going for networking, these are few of the topics that you actually need to read up on in cybersecurity, along with the basic questions like what is CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data. Reading up on these basic things would be what you actually need to know for in the interview, and other than that, it would be more specific to the course to the field that you are getting into. So maybe if you specify what field in cybersecurity you're preparing for, you I can help you. Okay, share the link in the chat. Uh, Sunil, yeah. Sunil, what I can do is not just the link, I'll share the complete presentation. I think with Sana, and she can share it with the complete group, because then you can go through the certification, the images for the certifications, the different professions, and all these links. Everything would be in that one PDF. Sana, I think that's all you can know the summary. Known firm for cybersecurity consulting. Okay, so Tejal, so suppose I open my own firm for cybersecurity consultancy for companies and work for legal works for them. Okay, so for this part now, again, skills for this part, you would really need to have a good hold on your the normal IPC laws in India, because IT Act and this is somewhat interconnected. And at the same time, you would need to know the IT Act properly as well. And another added skill, which now I have noticed over the past few years, most of the cyber lawyers have been wanting to pick up is cybersecurity investigations. Like, how do you investigate a if you go to a cybercrime scene, for example, maybe a fake call center, like how are you supposed to go ahead with that investigation? Because many a times what happens is in India, okay, in Mumbai, if you say we do have a cyber cell in BKC, which knows what really to do in case of these incidents, but in the other parts of India, we don't really have anyone who knows how to handle any of these cybersecurity incidents. So in that case, if you as a cyber lawyer are able to guide many of these uh, lawmakers, policemen, how to go about with the case, how to handle the investigation, that can be a really added skill. And cyber crime investigation as a career is also a really good opportunity. Has really good career opportunities, if you ask me. Yeah. Any course for the same? Yeah, there are actually many courses for this, like for this particular, like for most of the cybersecurity things. So this was one of the institutes that I kind of helped design a few of these courses. So they have many of these courses in cybercrime and ethical hacking. Still do give a few guest lectures over here. So they are one of the institutes that has many of these skills. And there are actually many other this thing. There's this Asian School of Law which has cyber law. Then There was KC College, which has their they have this yearly program where they teach cyber law in around 4 weeks time. So there are many courses as such. Sahana, I think we're done with the questions.
I guess we are done with the questions. I think we can end the session. Amisha, you can go ahead with the vote of thanks.
Yes. That was a very informative and enlightening session, sir. We're sure everyone had a fun and interactive learning experience, and that everyone is well acquainted with what cybersecurity is and its significance in the industry. We really thank you for sharing your valuable knowledge with us aspiring students. We look forward to be hosting many more such enlightening sessions with you in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anshad. Thank you, Sahana, for arranging this whole thing. And
Thank you,
if
sir.
any
Thank
one
you
of
for
you ever
coming.
have any doubt, feel free to get in touch with me anytime through whatever social media means you can. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Bye, guys.